Hey guys, this is Nephis here, and it's time to Nephis and chill. And I'm going to be going over the CP 2.0 frequently asked questions post on the forums, because as some of you may know, the fact wasn't written, well, some parts of it weren't written accurately, and some parts of it were confusing, and that has since been clarified with some feedback from myself and other players for this post. And just to note that this following frequently asked questions post is based on questions that the official ESO stream team members asked during a recent meeting that I personally didn't attend, but it did happen. I believe around it says right there, week 4 PTS testing with developers and ESO community managers. And I'm sure some of the questions asked were, questions from a lot of streamers communities. Whether they be about PvP, PvE, or whatever other aspect of the game that they often do or represent. Anyway, let's go over it, and I'll try to clarify any parts that may also still be confusing for some of you, because I still get a lot of these weird questions in Discord asking, hey Nephis, is it true that if you're 1000 CP right now, you'll be boosted to 3600 CP. There's a lot of misinformation and stuff going on. I don't know why or how that's happening, but no, they're not scaling your CP up. And that's exactly the first question. Will the CP 2.0 cap raising to 3600 mean all our CP from 1.0 will scale up? Is the experience growth in CP 2.0 different from CP 1.0? And the answer is no, your CP will not scale. Now, this is a controversial one because a lot of older players feel cheated and so forth. But I mean, there are other instances of where older players felt cheated. I mean, I think the most recent one was the VMA perfected weapons. The other one was when CP 2 points with CP 1.0, which is kind of a misnomer in my opinion, because CP 1.0 went through quite a few iterations. When the first champion point system, that came about. I mean, you know what I mean? And the second point was when it was capped. So, I don't know. There's like mixed feelings on this, but at the same time, the XP curve was addressed quite a lot during the PTS cycle. There's been a lot of feedback from players. The class reps also forwarded this feedback. And I'm happy to say, honestly, I'm happy that the XP curve now is up to 1800 champion points. As I say right here, under CP 1800 will grow very quickly, as opposed to whatever that weird number was in week 2 PTS. So I believe it was like 1050 champion points. I'm like, okay, well, that's kind of weird. And of course, they did take the player feedback into consideration in 1800. And that's actually pretty close to the min-max point. And when I'm saying min-max, and a lot of people still misunderstand me, I'm saying like world record or score pushing for PvE, or for PvP it might be a little bit higher, but right now the min-max point would be around 2000, 2100, and that's pretty close. So no complaints from me there. And they note here that, and compared to what CP 1.0, a fresh new player would need 56% less experience to reach max CP cap in CP 2.0. This kind of confused me because previously it's at 40%, but they adjusted. It is actually 56% less. So it means, as opposed to going from 0 to 810 CP in CP 1.0, compared to going from 0 to 3600 CP, you'll need 56% less XP total. I mean, not to say that's still not a lot of XP, but whatever. As a reminder, you don't need to be max CP to do well. So for those of us testing 3600 champion points on the public test server, this is quite true, because we can't really fill out every slottable node or even every single passive. And not that there are too many passives left after, I believe, week 3. So there you go. I mean, you don't have to get a 3600 CP to be a good player. And I've been talking a lot about this, and it's astounding actually how much gameplay experience and knowledge make up for, even right now during CP 1.0, for the lack of CP and the lack of item sets. But anyway, CP 1800 is a new expected XP curve for diminishing experience, and I made a video about this. I shared Asian God's spreadsheet calculator. I'll have it linked at the end of the description, at the end of the video, this video, if you guys want to see how much XP you need to grind for your next champion point goal. Around CP 2000, there are no more passives to unlock, but you'll have access to quality of life changes. An 810 on CP 1.0 will feel just as strong walking into CP 2.0. This is still a matter of debate. I mean, we did test on week 1 with the penetration bug, by the way, the 2 new DLC dungeon hard modes. and all the DPS in the group said, you know, it doesn't feel like we lost power. Objectively speaking, is it actually a loss of power going from a capped 810 CP to an uncapped 810 CP? Yes, absolutely. But I think the emphasis should be on feeling. It doesn't feel like you were nerfed or, nerf hammered, you know what I mean? So I think most players won't even really notice or even care, to be honest with you. Number 2, if the current meta in CP 1.0 is for a player to be around CP 300 plus to complete a competitive veteran trial, I don't know what this is, but what is the equivalent CP that players should try to hit for CP 2.0? Is any of the dungeon content harder to reflect this higher CP 2.0 cap? We did not change the difficulty requirements for Dungeon Finder. 300 to 600 CPs where ideally you should be able to do that content, okay? You can actually do it a little less than that. If you're aiming for a leaderboard CP, you'll need to be around 800 to 1100. And when they say, a lot of people are confused about this because they're like leaderboard score. So I think they're kind of referring more to like solo arena leaderboard score, a weekly trial leaderboard score, which you don't need to be optimized at all to get a decent score on. So this is fair. You'll probably need around 800 to 1100. This is probably a very generous estimate. But anyway, the majority of the player base right now sits around CP 410. This is actually a shocking. This is a very shocking revelation. I'm actually kind of curious how they calculated this or how they look at it. Like, are they looking at the majority of the player base that's been active since last year, in the past 6 months, the majority of the accounts that were made? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I'm going to take this with a grain of salt. 410 champion points. I've also noticed a lot of older players coming back to the game. I've been seeing a lot more 2400 CP players. I've been seeing a lot of 1500 CP players that I haven't seen in a long time, by the way. And yeah, they're all coming back. And I think that definitely skews my perception of the player base as a whole. Not to say that there aren't any lower CP players, but definitely this is something I have to personally wrap my mind around. If you're at CP 1.0 810, you should be able to do all of the exact same content with CP 2.0. I agree. There's also no effect to the battlegrounds with the CP changes. Obviously, because Battlegrounds is no CP. The cap on gear has been at 160 forever, and we don't foresee that changing anytime soon either. There's been a lot of, like, people theory crafting or, like, predicting that the gear cap will be raised. There's a lot of factors to this. There's a lot of factors in terms of not just grinding, but there's also the factor of in-game economy. I mean, there's so many variables, I just don't really see them raising the gear cap anytime soon. I mean, again, you also have to take into account that they've been trying to make it much more casual player friendly, much more new player friendly, so I just don't see this happening anytime soon. And I agree with their stance. I mean, I don't know how a gear cap raise would look, but I'm not really gonna, like, think about it. Anyway, number 3, there have been concerns about players having very high HP and HP regen with the new CP system. Yeah, a lot. Like, we're talking about like 14,000, 17,000 health recovery in PvP or something. How does CP 2.0 balance this? Back in update 28, we reached better balance with majors and minors, which reduced the total amount of healing obtained from major and minor mending plus vitality. We've also recently reduced major and minor recovery related bonuses, including fortitude, which should help take some of the edge off health recovery. We're also investigating, and this is a very key point, leveraging battle spirit for future adjustments to health recovery as well. So it sounds like we may need to bear with health recovery builds for at least one patch until they decide to do something about it, at least in regards to PvP. For PvE, it's like kind of whatever. But for PvP, for sure, it's definitely a big concern. But yeah, this is going to be a pretty interesting thing because Battle Spirit isn't often adjusted that much. And this Battle Spirit referring to the how your stat damage and tooltips are affected in serial PvP and so forth. But yeah, this is going to be pretty interesting. Let's see what happens. And there was confusion about this because the answer previously, before they updated the post, and they made this a lot more clear, they were trying to answer like three different questions in one go. How will you combat the gap between low CP and high CP players? In CP 2.0, you will have a finite number of passes but an infinite number of slottables. With this new system, we as developers can continue to build and add more active or slottables to give more choices for players. With a smaller number of passes and cool and exciting things in slottables, this should help control the power gap. And this is also an exciting thing about the CP 2.0 system. Choices. And when the first iteration of the CP 2.0 system came out on week 1, we were like, what the heck is going on? There's like so many passives, and it's like there's a huge amount of vertical progression as opposed to horizontal progression with the CP 2.0. But over the past few weeks over on the PTS cycle, they've definitely added or even transformed a lot of the passives into slottable CP nodes. So this is a pretty good thing, and I agree with this. Total DPS output seems lower in CP 2.0. What's the reasoning for this? I mean, what's the reasoning for nerfing DPS? Are you kidding me? Look at literally my videos or any endgame PvE videos. Like, come on, really? You find it really fun after all these years to just burn Rakata in pad 2 or 3 and be like, all right, good job, guys. I mean, there's like no sense of fulfillment or progression, honestly. A lot of times, even for new content, it's like, I like a lot of people assume just because like I'm an endgame raider or player that I just always want to do high DPS. I just want the groups to always just burn the shit out of bosses. I just always want to skip mechanic. I mean, it's like, come on, like there's no for me personally, and for a lot of players I know in the in-game community, there's no like sense of progression or fulfillment or a point to it. It's just like you can't really tell who's good either at a certain point with a lot of these past patches or metas where DPS is so easily attainable or too high that, okay, well, cool, you killed the boss, but how do I know you're good? Stuff like that. And I don't know, dude, like people complain about DPS being nerfed are like delusional. Like, you'll be fine with 80k DPS. You'll be fine with 60k DPS. We used to play this game with like 1.5k DPS. Like, I don't know. What's the reasoning? Because it's absurd. That's why. Will tanks or healers get more utility in CP 2.0? The overall goal was to reduce the power of high-end damage and efficiency by 15 to 20% with CP 2.0. The previous post said we nerfed it by 15 to 20%, which is not the case. Next patch, DPS will largely remain the same, with some slight decreases for some classes, as there is a significant delta in power between many players. This is something I feel like this is an entirely different topic in terms of player skill gap. But anyway, let's move on. However, due to the penetration bug we saw in live and PTS, we didn't fully reach that goal, and we'll continue investigating solutions. I have no idea. I still have no idea what they mean by this, such as potentially reducing passive power from the CP system further, as well as looking to more outlying problems. Okay, I could make an entire video, like an entirely different video on this, but let me just go over this right now. And this is my thesis. Okay, the nature of PvE incoming damage is the biggest cause as to why we have a lot of problems, especially when we're talking about healers, right? Especially when we're talking about mechanics, especially when we're talking about why groups go with 3 DPS and 1 tank, and why they still will go with 3 DPS and 1 tank even if their DPS gets nerfed. So this is a hugely complex problem that requires a lot more discussion, in my opinion. It has nothing to do with CP 2.0. It has nothing to do with item sets even sometimes. It has a lot to do with the nature of the content. And this comes up indirectly a lot every patch whenever DPS or something gets nerfed. Can we do this? Can we do the content? Will the content be changed? And I feel like there are certain content that we should look at as players or even developers, like Stone Garden or Moongrave Fane or certain content like that, where why do we tend to bring more healers there and not elsewhere, right? We also have to speak about how power creep has scaled in comparison to older content like Dragonstar Arena or Fungal Grotto 1. So this is a very complicated problem, I feel like, and I just don't think it really has to do with some of the things they have mentioned or will mention. But yeah, I guess, again, that's an entirely different discussion. For tanks, no large changes for CP 1.0 to CP 2.0. For healers, we recognize that the healing tree is limited right now. Yeah, we do have plans to try and expand the healing tree further in terms of slottable nodes. See number 7. Number 7 is basically, yeah, again, I'm personally excited about the CP 2.0 system because it does have this potential to have expansion, to be more, a lot less rigid than CP 1.0, which was just a bunch of prerequisite nodes you can put points into and you're done, with some passes being unlocked. I feel like CP 2.0 will definitely be exciting in terms of not just your player progression or character progression, but also how you build characters in the future. So that is a great point that they are making in terms of limitations or possibilities. Anyway, for tanks, no large changes from CP 1.0. Yeah, there really isn't. Will there be new tutorials covering the CP 2.0 changes? The new tutorial will not talk about CP, but there will be in-game tutorials covering it. We've also talked about adding in a CP advisor, like the skills advisor, but we have nothing planned at the moment. I believe this. I don't know if I can talk about this, but I believe someone brought this up. Someone from the ESO stream team brought this up and mentioned me, and they were like, maybe we should have something in the game, like something like what the ESO University website has for CP allocations, but something also like the skills advisor. I don't know about that one because the whole point of the CP 2.0 system is to have specific choices, eventually at least, for a lot of builds and setups. What I do with the website and what when other people recommend are often to do more with either builds specifically, which are of their own creation, or with optimization, which I don't think would really work out in the game. I don't know. I'm not sure. Like the skills advisor alone, the skills advisor is kind of whack. I don't know anyone who actually uses it, or any player, or any new player that looks to it for information. I don't know how much engagement it has in the game, but all the new players I know just go to YouTube videos or websites like Outcast website or something like that for, recommended skills, right? So I don't know about a CP advisor, because I feel like a CP advisor should take more in the form of an explanation of certain tooltips. Maybe some of the wording of the CP nodes are confusing. But beyond that, I think it should be left to the player, not really like recommended by other players or recommended by devs. Because again, like on two parts, I don't know if anyone engages with the skill advisor at the moment. And secondly, I think a lot of players just kind of disregard the skill advisor as nonsensical or not useful. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Will there be more crafting trees or skill lines in the future? Non-combat system will play a larger role in CP now, specifically the green tree. But yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of the CP 2.0 frequently asked questions. Hopefully I cleared up some of the confusion that that happened after the first iteration of this post, but this is the updated iteration. I'm pretty happy that they cleared up most things for sure. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll leave a link to this frequently asked questions post in the video description below. Thanks for Netflix and chilling, and I'll see you guys soon. Hopefully the patch will treat us well in 3 days as of the making of this video, and hopefully nothing breaks. Yeah.